Good morning and welcome to BLIXX All About Horses and Their Care. I'm your host Gabriela Rodriguez, and today our show is called Managing Insects, What's in Your Fly Spray? And we brought a lot of fly sprays and a lot of information and visuals for everyone to see. This is the beginning of insect season, more or less. Because of the weather that we've been having in some parts of Maine, some people may have already seen some insects flying around. I know that I have, and I've been terrified because it's so early, it's April, but things have been a little bit different this year, and so we might be getting a few more insects breeding earlier than we have in other years. To help us today with our show is a guest that's returning, and thank you so much, Kathy, for coming back.
Happy to be here.
Dr. Kathy Murray, a Maine State entomologist. And also, before I forget, I want to let people know to check our other shows. We have one called Biting Insects and another one called Stinging Insects that we did about almost a year ago. And they are on YouTube. If you check BLIXX Horses or type Steve Poulos, you can see all the videos for Biddeford Public Access. So I'm going to turn it over to Kathy right now, and I'm going to let Kathy tell you a little bit about what she does. So there we go, Kathy.
Well, I am an entomologist. I study bugs. I went to graduate school. Well, as an undergraduate, I studied animals, zoology, and then went to graduate school and specialized in insects. It's a great career to be in, actually, because everybody does have insect problems from time to time and need help in identifying them and managing them safely in ways that that we can manage, that are safe and sensible and
cost-effective, if that's possible.
Cost-effective, yeah. So that's what I do. I work for the Maine Department of Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry, and work with a variety of people, everyone from homeowners and horse owners to schools and farmers and foresters to help them find sensible, effective ways of managing pests when they become a pest. Most of the time, insects are not. They're very beneficial.
Yes,
they're food
that's
for
important.
birds and bats.
Part of the ecosystem.
Part of the
right?
ecosystem.
All of them.
But every once in a while, when they interfere with the things that we appreciate or threaten our health, then we try to take sensible steps to manage them and keep them from doing their damage to us.
Yes, and so there were a couple questions that I wanted to ask you that I hadn't asked you before. One was just a little bit about your background, and so I was joking around with you a little bit. I asked you if you were a farm girl.
Yeah.
And if we were involved in agriculture when you were younger, and that's why you became involved in this profession, but you said no.
No, not really. My parents did have a small garden, so we started vegetable gardening early, and we lived at the end of a road in a city. So I was a city girl, but I had a little bit of exposure to rural activities, and I think I have to credit that, my family and
well, yes, yeah,
to
just
supporting
like
that.
I guess you said I should credit my mother for
That's
showing
right.
me this book. This is so old, but I found it in her basement, and it's something that she showed me when I was just a little girl, and you said, that might have been something that just stayed with you, and she's probably right.
That's right.
So we never know the experiences that we have when we're younger, or kids that we reach as adults when we reach kids, who we're going to give this information to and what they're going to do with it. So it's always good to give people as much as you can.
I think that's a really important point, Gabriela. That many of us learn to fear insects and freak out, and when we freak out,
that's right.
we may take inappropriate responses. Reaching for the very first thing with a
fear.
chemical spray, right? And thinking that we're, doing the best thing, but if you just step back for a minute and think about it a little bit, usually there's a more sensible solution.
Yeah. And there's one more question I'm going to ask you that I ask all my guests now. Do you have any pets? Not pests, but pets.
I have a pet. I don't have a horse. I have a very
okay.
small, furry pet, a cat.
Aw. Well, it's nice to know that you have a little critter, too.
Sure.
Because all us animal people, whether it's a horse, a cat, a little rabbit, they're all special little animals, and they require care. And we have to take care of them.
That's right.
Your cat, whether it's an indoor cat, an outdoor cat, if it's an outdoor cat, you have to take other precautions as opposed to an indoor cat. But no matter what it is, they all need our help.
That's right.
Right?
They rely on us, and we have to do the best we can for them.
Yeah. So what's your cat's name?
Bentley.
You
Bentley.
forgot his
I know, we call her Kitty. Bentley.
Aw, Bentley, that's a cute name. I have a little dog named Bentley up the street, but she is a dog. Bentley sounds like a male name, right? But it's a
girl.
female. All right. So anyway,
Named by my kids.
on with the show. So I brought a lot of sprays. Some I had at home, some I borrowed from friends. I also threw a few human sprays in there because the show is about what's in your spray. So people right now in barns or people that have horses are probably taking a look at all their products. Hopefully they weren't frozen over the winter and they were stored properly, right, for one thing. But now they're probably looking through all the catalogs. I forgot to bring one so you could see all the different products, really cute names, really impressionable names. But the end result is what is on the ingredients and on the label in the back.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
So I wanted to do a real quick recap just on insects, not too much because they can go to the other shows, but we have a few insects that we really worry about in Maine and, a little further down in New England.
Sure.
But like you told me when we talked yesterday, and this is really important because you have to remember, like you said, we live in the Maine woods. This is it. This is our environment. And that's where the insects are. And so you can't get rid of them, and we shouldn't want to get rid of them. We want to control things, but you don't want to get frustrated. I tend to get frustrated sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's important to distinguish between those that we can do something about, like the filth flies.
Yes.
And we're not going to talk about those too much because we already covered them in an earlier show. But the house flies and the stable flies that breed in the manure and the rotting hay and organic matter in our barnyards, those are something we can do something about just by keeping things very clean and managing manure very well and keeping everything clean and dry. You can prevent and eliminate those flies a lot.
Yeah.
And the stable flies actually bite. So if you're having a problem with stable flies, those are the ones that bite the animals on the legs.
Yes.
You see the animals stomping quite a bit.
Yes,
Oftentimes
which is
that's
bad
something
for
you can
them.
really just do by eliminating that breeding habitat by keeping things very clean and dry. But as you say, things we're going to emphasize today are those ones that we really just kind of have to find other ways to live with them because they are part of nature. Birds eat them, fish eat them, they reproduce in the natural streams and in the forests that, that we love and appreciate about Maine.
Yeah.
But then they wander in and
Right.
bite us in seeking a blood meal. Normally they would, bite wildlife, but when we and our
Right.
horses are there, they'll bite us too.
They're bigger.
Yeah, and that's when we oftentimes end up reaching for the sprays. But let's not forget that there are some other things that we can do to prevent them from biting us
Right.
too, with the use of clothing and avoiding the busiest times of day for those insects and that kind of thing.
The other thing, you said cleanliness, and cleanliness I can't, probably because of my background and probably your background too, we understand how important that is. And cleanliness not only means if you have soda or coffee even with sugar, anything that you're eating, that you dispose of it correctly. But what's even more important that I have seen in barns many, many times is urine and the ammonia smell. But the urine that's left in there, because there's different ways or methods of cleaning stalls. The only way that I like is to get it out, all of it out, gone.
Excellent.
But there are some other ways that people use, and I think some of it they try to be cost effective so that they don't throw out all of the shavings, but sometimes they leave the urine there and they just cover it up. And not only is that horrible for the respiratory systems, but that just attracts insects.
It does, and it makes things wet, and then that starts the decay process,
Yeah.
which also brings them in too. So
Right.
I agree. I think it's better to keep things as clean as you possibly can.
Right. And then there's another method, I think they call it some type of mucking method, and I can't tell you what it is exactly because I don't do that either. By leaving some of the manure in there. Well, I can see by the look on your face that you don't think that's too good. Well, neither did I. So if you have a horse or any animal, just ask yourself, would you like to be in that situation?
Right.
And probably you'll clean everything up,
Right.
right? Because that attracts insects. So
Right.
if you have insects, that might be one of the
Yeah,
reasons.
yes, especially. So should we talk about some of the insects that we do have in
Yes,
Maine?
let's
All right.
do that.
I think we had
Okay, here we
some
go.
here on some slides. This one here is the one that I see first of all in the spring is the black flies.
Yeah.
Again, part of nature. They reproduce in fast-moving streams, and when our rivers became very cleaned up and taking away away the pollution out of our rivers, we saw a resurgence of black flies. Fish eat them, but they're blood feeders. The females do bite us. In my area, in central Maine, they're pretty active from about the middle of May till the middle of June. Down here in southern Maine, maybe a little bit earlier, first week of May till first week of June or so.
Yeah, and that can change sometimes depending on the type of weather that we have, right?
That's right, that's right. They're most active, about 5 o'clock in the evening or on an overcast day. That's when we're most likely. In the middle of the day, they tend to slow down a little bit during that period, but so black flies are one that, that bite us and our horses. Yes, and can cause terrible skin reactions. And like we were talking about earlier, once the horse has that irritation, then they can start scratching it and cause an open wound, which can become infected.
Infected, yes. And that's very hard to take care of afterwards.
The next one that I oftentimes, maybe it's not going to go. The slides are not moving for us, but there we go.
It's almost pretty.
It is, isn't it?
Big eyes.
The horse flies. There's a number of different species. There's over 300 species of horse flies and deer flies, which are related to them. There again, they live, in the woods along the. They lay their eggs on the grasses that line ponds and streams. Their eggs drop down into the mud where they hatch and live down there under. They reproduce all summer in the mud, exactly. And then the adults are very aggressive biters. You can see that business end of those mouth parts there. It looks like a stiletto. They come and stab right in and suck blood from both you and me and our horses and animals. That's right. So that's something to be aware of.
The horse flies and deer flies, yes.
Yeah.
And they hurt.
Oh, don't they?
They hurt. And they also, I noticed with the deer flies especially, they love the crest of the manes at the very top of the neck. That's where they go. And for people that take a lot of the hair off the mane, that area then is just open to getting all those flies and having a lot of flies biting at the same time. Up at the very top. It's terrible. The horses can't get to it, and I think they know that.
That's probably right too. Here's one laying its eggs on some vegetation that would be next to a stream. For instance. I think the next slide shows the deer flies, which, as I mentioned, they're closely related. They also lay their eggs on the vegetation next to streams and ponds. And they're the ones that have the colorful wings, the banded wings that.
They are really pretty, yeah.
But we hate them when they bite.
But I want to mention too, I live close to a river, right? And you were talking about rivers and streams and waterways and all that. And the river isn't right next to me. I can't see it. It's down the road a little bit, but. Because of that, they fly, and they fly great distances, don't they?
They can fly pretty far.
So
probably a couple
sometimes
miles.
there's, they're going to come, and you just have to figure out how to take care of them.
That's right.
All right.
And this might be one of our last ones was maybe they're controlling it for us. The biting midges, and we talked about those earlier.
They're coming.
And you apparently have them even earlier than I do, or early in the spring. I don't usually.
But you're up in, are you in Augusta? A little further
even north of there.
Okay.
Yeah, and
well,
there's different
Maine,
species too, so it depends on where you live and what species are most prevalent in your particular area. But they're attracted to lights at night, so if you leave the barn lights on or in the barnyard, that'll help bring them in the evening, and so you might want to look at ways of either shielding the lights or redirecting the lights so that they're not drawing in these.
And I had a question about that. Moonlight. What happens with moonlight? Is that a factor in the insect population? Because I turn all my lights off. I learned to do that. I think probably the last time I talked to you, years ago, when you helped me so much. But what happens when there's moonlight?
That's a good question. I don't think it really affects them nearly as much. Insects actually use the moon to orient, to fly, and they mistake our porch lights and barnyard lights and stuff for the moon, and so they fly towards it rather than, trying to go in a straight line using the moon as their orientation device. So that's, at least that's the theory that they tell us in grad school. Yeah, that's right. And then lastly, the mosquitoes. They can be around any time of year, even in the wintertime, really. If you've ever seen mosquitoes in your house in the wintertime, it can happen.
They come back to life.
They can, that's right. And there's a number of different species. The ones that are mammal biters and that we most are concerned about with the diseases, the viral diseases, Eastern equine encephalitis, West Nile virus, are most active, and they build up that level of disease by biting birds. So usually it's midsummer to late summer. Well, June to October is our disease season for mosquitoes that we're concerned about. So.
And I think on another show we talked about one of the reasons that you see more cases possibly of encephalitis is because there's a higher population of insects as we go deeper into the summer. In August and September, there are more mosquitoes than there are, say, right now, or in June.
Yes, they have more time they have a fairly rapid life cycle. They can reproduce and go from egg to adult in as short of a period of time as a week in really warm weather. So Massachusetts, also that habitat of swampy habitat where they are finding the birds that they need to be able to bite to pick up the disease. And then transmit it to mammals by biting them and giving us the disease or horses the disease. Yeah, that very rapid cycling in the appropriate habitat. The eastern seaboard seems to be most prevalent where Triple E is in Florida.
Right.
Starting to find it a little bit further west though, so always a very big concern that horse owners really should take steps to protect themselves and their horses from being bitten by mosquitoes.
So when we're thinking that we really have had enough of these winters and we never want to do it again, and we just want to go a little further south, maybe not Florida, maybe Massachusetts, we have to think twice because they have more problems sometimes. They're right.
That's right.
So even though we have the Maine woods, so think twice before you move.
We go from midwinter to bug season so quickly. It seems like I don't remember if we had any. Oh, that's
cute little guy.
stable flies that also can bite. But that's one of those where we can do something about it by keeping our barnyards very clean.
Yeah. And you want to have your manure pile as far away as you can. Covering it is a great idea. It's a difficult thing to do, to accomplish, especially as that manure pile. I tried to get a tarp and cover it because I get my manure picked up pretty frequently. But it just makes more sense to cover it up because then you won't have all those insects breeding in there too. But sometimes an idea isn't practical.
Well, that's
it's difficult to do, but
we
it
have
makes
to find
sense.
what works best for us, don't we?
Yeah.
Everybody's got a slightly different situation.
So I think I had heard this in barns before, but I definitely saw it when I got my horses home and had a little more control of the situation. We have the bug of the month, and they last 21, 28 days, sometimes longer, you said. But it just seems there's no window of time where there's nothing. But you have to figure out who's going to be out at what time of day sometimes, and then you can sneak the horses out because what I do, which is not the healthiest thing for horses because of their digestive system and they need to move, but I feel better because when you look at horses in the summertime, they're not moving around. They're standing still, conserving their energy because summertime, the heat is actually harder on them than winter temperatures. So my horses are in their stalls. It's sad to say, but June, July, August, those 3 months are really difficult. And I can tell you that my horses, especially my dark horse, my big, very dark horse, runs in and begs me to come inside because he just gets attacked. Because they see him, because the insects that fly by sight, and you can find this on our other shows, and we talked about that, find him. And it's just a terrible thing
the
for him.
dark color and then the breathing, they smell the CO2 from the horse breathing, and then that dark color. And so, probably a little bit of, just chemistry. We all have a little bit slightly different body chemistry. And you were saying earlier, your dark hair. And
oh, yeah, if I walk, I see them around me, and I can't get rid of them. If I have a blonde girlfriend,
people like us with light hair like to hang out with people with dark hair because the bugs will go to you.
And I also want to mention, as you were talking about things that attract them too, if your horse has something that looks like this on him or a dark sheet, the insects are going to see him, the ones that hunt by sight, are going to see those horses first, as opposed to something that's white or light or just a solid color, right? As opposed to dark.
That's right.
Okay. So you have to be careful what you're wearing, what you put on your horse too, because now they have fly masks that have all kinds of colors on them and actual faces. Just there's a lot of marketing with horses to buy this, to buy that. They market to young kids especially that think they're really cute, but you forget what that effect is going to be on the horse.
avoid blue because
Oh, that's good to
blue
know.
is very attractive to those deer flies, apparently.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, people have come up with some kind of clever traps with blue, and they're very attracted to the
Wow.
color blue. Yeah,
Now,
so
is it
don't
dark
wear
blue
blue.
or light blue, or does it matter what blue?
Dark blue.
Dark blue?
Yeah, kind
A
of.
darker, yeah, well, that makes
Not
sense.
navy blue, but more like a royal blue.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll keep that in mind. I'll make that note.
Yeah, that's right.
I've seen moose flies around my place. I don't know how prevalent they are, and I don't know what diseases they have, but boy, those little things look like hummingbirds. They're so big.
I know. They probably carry infectious anemia like horseflies do
Yeah.
because they are horseflies.
And that's important. The equine infectious anemia, and there isn't a vaccination for that. There's a Coggins test that you do every 3 years, but it's not mandatory. If you go to shows, they ask for proof of that. But that's carried by horseflies and deer flies.
Yeah.
And that's something, even it's fatal, basically. The horses have to be euthanized. So in some cases, it's even worse than encephalitis in some ways. But there are diseases out there, and there's many, many diseases that I found that flies carry besides let's see, I think I had it here. There was anthrax, there was cholera, there was, in these areas here, probably not. But if you see a fly, there's a disease there because of their habitat, where they're sitting, what they're eating, with their legs, like you said.
Yeah, those particular kinds of diseases are associated with filth flies. And
Yeah.
all the more reason to keep things very clean.
Yeah, filth is a bad word.
Filth
We
is a
don't
bad
like
word.
filth.
That's right. But these
City
diseases that
girls.
are actually vectored by the insect that they give it to them when they bite them,
Yeah.
those are ones that are, I think, even more of concern. So
Yeah.
keeping things clean to avoid those filth
Yes.
diseases and filth in general, and then protecting them. So maybe we should talk about some of the, and you wanted to talk a little bit about the coverings that
Oh, I just wanted to mention, we have so many options as horse owners, what we can do, and what I have found that I have to do, and I think a lot of people do, is just a combination of things. You find out what bugs you have, and you find out where they are and what time of day they come out, and then you do things accordingly. Sheets are great. You can have sheets that cover everything except, the private parts of the horse, because you can't do that. So what do the bugs do? They find those areas. So and they also get caught in there sometimes. So if you see a horse rolling and they have a sheet on, it may not be just a playful roll. It may be that they're trying to crush that bug that got underneath the sheet, because I've actually seen horse flies underneath the sheet. So that's definitely one disadvantage, but there's a place for sheets. So sheets are available. Keeping the water tanks and the containers that the horses eat out of clean. In most barns, they do that about once a week, and I'm really a proponent of doing it more often if you can, at least rinsing them out, because the insects will be, the flies will be attracted to that, and those are the filth flies. And they get into the water too, those large watering troughs that they have outside that are cleaned maybe once a week. A lot of times they're just really, really slimy. It's pretty disgusting, and you wouldn't. The other reason for that is all the bacteria in there. So there's many reasons, you go back to being clean. But we have fly masks, fly sheets. We have things we can put on their legs. Almost anything is out there, but there's a place and a time for everything. But you need to investigate and figure out what you need. There's also equipment. There's traps, and there's herbal. There's supplements. There's all kinds of things that you can use. But today, what I wanted to do was focus on those sprays.
Okay.
So I'm going to let it go with you.
Okay. Well, there's, as you pointed out, there are lots and lots and lots of different kinds of sprays. And I think maybe they're used as a repellent. Some of them are used to kill an insect. They're called an insecticide.
So side is that word that
That's
people
right.
look for.
Like homicide, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. It won't necessarily say insecticide on the label, but it might say kills flies.
Okay.
Those kinds of products that are really intended to kill a fly are usually not applied. Well, some of them actually do have some ingredients that can be both repellent and killing. But the ones that are really intended to kill, for the most part, are ones that we call premise sprays or space sprays.
Okay.
Horse owners, and I use them as a last resort. I would recommend them only as a last resort after you've already done everything you can to really keep things very clean and dry.
Right.
Usually there's not much of a reason to have to spray the surface of the building. People do it because when a fly comes and rests on that spot, if there's a residual of this insecticide because you've sprayed the building, it will kill them. And with the space sprays, it's just a quick knockdown. It kills the flies that are in that area right then and there. But if you haven't done anything to clean up the, breeding places, the manure and the organic matter
Yeah.
where they might be breeding, they're going to be right back.
Right.
So neither one of those would I ever recommend as a first resort.
Right.
Those are just if you're really having a problem and you just haven't been able to solve it. Those insecticides.
Figure something out.
But the other products that we're going to focus on quite a bit today are the ones that really are called repellents. Technically, they are also a kind of a side, but they don't kill as much as they just repel. And so we lump them together. They're regulated by the federal government and by the state government. For the most part, most of them are. If they have an EPA registration number on them, and I'll show a label in just a moment.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen one, or I even looked for one, actually. Yeah.
That means that they are registered by the federal government. It means there has to have been a certain amount of testing done to say that they're safe and that they're effective. But there's also a variety of products, the ones that are called natural products, organic products, a number of things that are based on plant botanical products, plant products like mint oil or citronella, those kinds of things.
Sound good.
Yeah, that's right, that's right. And they are generally considered safer, but nothing is ever safe, chemicals.
And they're not tested, you said.
They're not tested for either safety or effectiveness. So anybody can make any kind of marketing claim, and it's legal. Some of them may be somewhat effective. Oh, we do have a label showing that's showing
there it is.
And the print is very small, but I did just want to emphasize that it's really important when making a decision, even before you buy the product, to look at that label, even the very, very small print. It's a legal label, and it actually has a lot. It's not just, we have to put this on here. It's really critical information that everybody really needs to pay attention to.
And you can find that on the internet now, right?
You can.
If you're really interested in a spray as opposed to a catalog, because in the catalogs you don't see anything about what's in the bottle.
That's right. And you could always request it from the manufacturer. Go to the company and say, I want to be able to read the label a little more clearly, or like you did, you called a company and asked for technical information about the product.
And this is important. It's not that we're trying to make people do more work, but we're trying to help people be safe, also effective, and not waste their money.
That's right. That's right. They're expensive.
They're
this one was
very
$23, I see.
They're very expensive, and when you think of a horse and how big a horse is and every place you have to spray, and how long does it last?
Yeah, that's right.
And we also were talking, I want to jump in and say how resistant some of the insects are now. There is resistance.
That's right. Many of these products that are sold as repellents that also have a little bit of insecticidal activity in them, actually, some of them, the ones that seem to work the best, have so many different chemicals in them. It really does, it's to our benefit to find out as much as we can about those. Have synthetic pyrethroids, they're called synthetic pyrethroids. And it doesn't say that on the label, but one of the common synthetic pyrethroids is permethrin. And permethrin, it would say that on the label. It's quite effective, has been quite effective, except that it's been used so much that many flies are now resistant to it. Many other insects are resistant to it too. So that's maybe one of the reasons why manufacturers are adding a lot more chemicals to it too, to help boost that. One of the ingredients you might see is something called piperonal butoxide, or PBO. It's called an active ingredient, but it's actually considered to be a synergist. It works by interfering with the insect's ability to avoid to detoxify the chemical. So it helps the insect to not detoxify that chemical and makes it more active ingredient. Another ingredient that we oftentimes see is called pyrethrins. Pyrethrins actually come from the chrysanthemum flower extract. The extract itself is called pyrethrum. Pyrethrum has several different chemicals inside of it, and many of those are called pyrethrins. Those are natural, but as we pointed out, many things that are natural are not safe for us. Arsenic, radon.
That's right.
Nicotine.
to name a few things.
Natural doesn't necessarily mean good. So.
Or safe, right?
Right. So,
I wanted to also mention, when you were talking about the premise sprays, when people spray those even as a last resort, shouldn't they be also aware of the respiratory systems and what the horses are inhaling when they go into the barn, or what they're inhaling?
That's right, absolutely.
Do you want to open up a bottle and inhale some?
That's right.
Would you do that?
That's right, and many of them are pretty fragrant, and that's where, again, you really need to read the label. I was reading one that said, only the person who's spraying the horse should be there. Children should not be in there, and other people should not be in there. That's not a
small
joke.
pets, and also small pets.
Exactly.
The horses are Department of Agriculture, so we don't consider them pets. But there are mammals everywhere.
That's right.
You don't want it to get close to your dog, but it's okay to spray the horse. So
That's
that
right.
doesn't make a lot
Well,
of sense.
it doesn't, but I think that's a little clue that that product does have some risk associated with it. If it says keep out and keep everybody else out, you're kind of balancing the risk. You're taking on a little bit of risk yourself. You're giving a little bit of risk to your horse in exchange for hopefully protecting them from one of these, biting flies or something. So it's all balancing risks. But when it says something like that on the label, you really should heed that, because yes, there is some risk associated with it. Yep. So those are the major natural ingredients that we'll see. Citronella is another ingredient we'll see. Very strong odor.
If you smell this, I mean,
no, thank you.
Then sometimes your instinct tells you more than your brain.
Yeah, that's
because it's not a good scent.
That's right.
And it's very strong, and to get that and be smelling it
all the time,
probably not good for you.
So don't use more than you need. I always advocate that people wear rubber gloves. If it's saying on the label that, and you know that they're chemicals, and like you were pointing out, you're going to use a lot of that product on a horse. You're rubbing it into the fur, you're wiping it down. Makes sense to wear rubber gloves.
Right.
But
also remember that if you're wearing rubber gloves, you're spraying it onto the skin of the horse, and it's being absorbed. As skin is skin is skin. It's basically all the same. So that's something just to be aware of.
That's right. I mean, toxicology, and I'm not a toxicologist. I'll give a contact number at the end of this that will put you in contact with a toxicologist who can explain all of that really well. But that, toxins, we can detoxify them to a certain degree if we're not immunocompromised. And a horse is a large animal, so they can handle a little bit of some of these kinds of products, but it's always about balancing those risks and using the minimal amount, and hopefully, not doing any
and being
harm.
informed,
Being informed, that's right.
So let's see what else you brought.
I also wear rubber boots because I don't want the stuff dripping through my socks and shoes. And long-sleeved shirt. Many of them actually, all the products will say that. They'll say wear a long-sleeve shirt, protect your eyes, wear goggles, wear gloves. Sometimes they'll say that.
Nobody does that, I can tell you. Well, there may be a few of you. Most people don't. Including myself.
I think we need to change that. I strongly feel like we need to change that.
I think you're right.
Because we're being exposed to chemicals all the time. And this one particular one might be a little bit safe, but if you've already been exposed to, 25 other chemicals that during that day, we don't even know what some of those interactive effects are, and they're all biologically active. That's why they're intended to be biologically active, because that's why we use them.
Yes.
To take an effect against a living organism.
Right,
so
right,
that's
right. And one of the other things that probably is really important, one of the easiest things to do is to get your horses out after dawn and bring them in before dusk, because that's just a really, really difficult time for them.
Avoid the times when the flies are most active.
Yeah, and I talked to a woman who, she vaccinates her horses, but she takes them out first thing, and they're out at dawn, and they're out at dusk, or whenever she brings them back in, so they're getting bitten. And so it's not okay, I don't think, to just vaccinate and try to prevent the diseases, but you also have to be concerned with their comfort and infections.
Exactly,
and
those
all
secondary infections that they get from, being...
Absolutely, yeah.
We did want to mention just briefly some of the human repellents.
Yes.
And it's important for pet owners and horse owners to recognize that these are only intended for people and not for animals. DEET is one of the major ingredients for some of the most commonly used human repellents, have been tested by the military, many, many years of data showing that for most people, DEET is quite safe if used as labeled on, read the back of the label, but you would never want to use it on an animal. It's not safe for animals to use. There are other citronella products. There's several different products that are okay for humans to use. Some of them are okay for both, but the product itself, you need to read the label itself, and follow those directions really carefully.
Yeah, and it's okay to be a little bit more fluent in what you're actually using and what you're storing. You should keep the spray bottles closed because everything's going to evaporate and you're going to waste all your money if you don't do that. And you have to store them at the right temperature, and you can't let them freeze, really.
That's right.
So there's a lot of things you can do. Now, I had this spray that actually smells really nice.
The marigold one?
The marigold. Because I have my horses inside, and when I say inside, I also open up the barn doors so that and I have screens on my doors so they get some breeze. So I have screens, it's dark, so a lot of the insects that like the light or hunt by sight can't see them because it's dark in there. I have the fans going, and they have hay, so they're very comfortable. And the fans also reduce the carbon dioxide.
That's true, and they provide a little bit of resistance for the flies to be able to come in. Even they've got that wind coming in, then they don't fly in as much. So I think it's good, very good. Yeah.
So there might be an occasion where a horse owner decides that there's a particular place on the horse's body that really needs attention, so you might want to, like there was one spray that I used to just use on the horse's legs. That's it. I wouldn't use it anywhere else.
I noticed you had a bottle that was labeled just for the horse's legs. Yeah, exactly.
So there's a lot of things that you can do, and you just got to figure out what your horse's sensitivity level is and what they need to try to keep them as comfortable as they can, because here we're going into the season. The other thing I wanted to mention, the insecticides with that CIDE ending, the way that a lot of them act is they act on the nervous system. Do they not, of the insects?
Some of them do. They're all biologically active, as we say. That's why we use them, is so that they will repel or do something. Yeah, and they won't always say insecticide on it, but one of the staff from the station here loaned us this one that said
don't use that either.
Ant and roach spray. And yes, this is an insecticide, but you would never want to use something like this on your horse or for killing flies.
Well, the danger, the warnings are all over that bottle too.
Yes, that's right.
In Spanish and English.
That's right. First aid, directions for use. So those are not a joke. Those precautionary statements on the back: avoid contact with the eyes, skin, or clothing. Wash thoroughly with soap. That's another really good point. Actually, even with the human repellents, they say when when you've gone back indoors and you're no longer needing it, you should wash your skin, take a shower, wash your hands. So you can reduce that potential impact when
you're spraying your horses, you want to be really careful not to spray their eyes. You need to close their eyes. If you're spraying their faces, it's better to put some on your hands or on your glove or wherever you're going to put it and dab it on.
Yes.
Or just get a fly mask.
Yes.
That's the easiest thing.
So you don't get it in through the mucous membranes of the eyes and through the nose, to try to reduce that exposure risk. That's a very good point.
And if there's already an infection or an irritation on the skin, you should not be spraying that irritation or certainly that infection or that area with any sprays, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. There are other things that you can do. You can coat them with baby oil. You can put all kinds of creams and things like that on them. But, I found the easiest thing for me, rather than taking care of the problem after it occurred, was preventing the problem to begin with. So that's why my guys, again, probably are going to be inside for a lot of the summer. But I also have to say, so people understand, my horses do get out for exercise. So just when I say they're inside, they're not in there 24/7. They also go to the bathroom outside. I've trained them to do that. So they take their little walk out and they come back in. Of course, that takes some time on for me, but my husband and I are there, or we're able to do it. They also go for hand walks. So they do get outside. And if you notice the horses in the summertime, they're not moving around very much. They're standing still. They're swishing their tails probably, but they're not doing much else. So I feel that, in my situation, that I'm doing the best to keep them comfortable.
It sounds like you really are.
Trying.
Yeah.
Now, what about some of these other sprays? Do you want to say anything else about just look for the labels, read what you're using, make sure that you understand. You can call the company, you can get online and find out. Why waste your money?
That's right.
And why keep using different products just because somebody else said it worked for them? It might not work for you.
I think one of the important messages is the information on the front. They will say a number of different things. This one says safe, non-toxic, Not necessarily true. Those are labeling claims. I mean, if
Okay,
it was
very good
non-toxic,
point.
it wouldn't work.
Yep.
It works because it does have some, toxicity to it, really.
That's right.
It's the information on the back of the label that's most important. And like you said, it gives the ingredients, so you want to look at those. There again, though, this particular product is a botanically based one. It's from plant extracts, and so it's one of those that doesn't have to be registered by the federal government, doesn't have to be tested for safety or efficacy. So that's where you just have to do a little bit of legwork when it comes to those natural extract kinds of compounds,
Yes.
marigold oil. Having said that, however, I think it's very helpful if you're going to do some research is to look for reliable research from where
Very
they've actually
important
done
point.
some scientific research
Yeah.
on that. A university usually is your
Yes.
best resource. University of Florida has a program where they're testing different kinds of repellents, so I would, look for
I'm not
University of Florida.
surprised,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's right, that's right. If anybody would
Bug
know.
haven,
That's
yeah.
right. I found some good research at University of Kentucky, also University of
Yes.
Tennessee. There was a master's degree thesis that I found where a woman a student had tested the marigold, one of the marigold botanical kinds of products against permethrin and against, what was the other, permethrin, pyrethrins,
Pyrethrins,
PBO
yes.
combination. She found that they all worked to a certain degree. The marigold product worked almost as well as the one that had 5 or 6 different laboratory synthesized products. So,
Yeah.
she had done a controlled study where she switched the treatments from horse to horse over a period of weeks and that kind of thing. That's the kind of research that I think is reliable, will give
Yeah.
you some information. Don't rely just on information that's just out there on the internet.
No.
You can find information on the internet, but look for a reliable
Yeah.
source like a university.
Yeah, if you have a horse, you really can expect to do a whole lot of work and a whole lot of homework for a whole long time.
Yes,
Every
yes.
single day to try to figure it out because it is quite a challenge.
But it's worth it. It's worth it.
Absolutely, and
You don't wanna be-
it saves your time down the road because then you
money.
know what to do and money.
That's
and
right.
that's something that we all need to save when we have horses. We have a little bit of time left, and I wanted you to talk about this.
Oh, yes, that's our bookmark.
It's a great website.
Yeah, gotpests.org. I think, should we just go ahead and
Yes.
switch to the one of those? I put the website link up there.
Good.
Maine is a kind of a special place, I think. And for one thing, they pay me as an integrated pest management specialist to work for the Department of Agriculture. Not all states have somebody like me, so I think that's
Well, I think
great.
it's wonderful too. Yeah, it's helped me
That's
a
right.
lot. Yes.
Thanks. But another step that the state of Maine has taken is they established an integrated pest management council, and that's this group that put out the bookmark that's and the website gotpests.org, recognizing, well, it's a group that's appointed jointly by Cooperative Extension and the Commissioner of Agriculture and approved by the governor. They're an official boards and commissions. They meet just twice a year, but they look for ways to help the general public, for the most part, find good solutions for managing pests. And they put up this website, gotpests.org, that's organized very well. It's intended as a tool to help anybody, yourself, me. I use it myself a lot, actually, to find, to identify, I know how to identify insects, but to find the best reliable resources that will help guide us in making those kinds of pest management decisions, how to avoid them, the benefits of them, and how we can, manage them sensibly without having to disrupt the environment. So.
Yeah, and I think they also, was there a section in there that talked about the natural predators like the
beneficial insects.
the beneficial insects and also bats and dragonflies and all of those things.
Those things is part of nature that are doing more good than we realize until we start spraying with insecticides and we kill them, and then we realize how much good they were doing us in the first place.
And even swallows, was that on that website?
Oh, birds are
Little
important predators of mosquitoes and
Yeah.
other flying insects, sure.
Yeah, so that's a really good site. I got on it, and it's always good to get information. The more information you have, the better decisions that you can make.
That's right. And for more information about repellents and pesticides, I also put on So a few resources. The National Pesticide Information Center
Yeah.
is an extraordinary resource. They're out of Oregon State University. They're open for phone calls, not 24/7, but in the middle of the day. They have excellent, really well-trained staff, very knowledgeable people. They also have information on their website. So if you have information about repellents, active ingredients, pesticides, you can go to that website, and if you have questions, you can call them. The Northern New England Poison Control Center is probably
Oh, that's a
another
good
number
one.
that, if you have a concern that you might have accidentally, exposed your horse or yourself, or somebody got into some product that you hadn't tightened the seal on it, or something
Or even the
happens.
soil. What if you drop a bottle,
Any of
open
that,
bottle
that's right.
into
And
water? Or,
absolutely. They are open 24/7, so I always encourage people
That's
to,
good.
make themselves
Good numbers to have. Every
those.
barn owner should have that in their barn.
That's right.
That's right.
And in our kitchen too.
Yeah.
And then lastly, the Environmental Protection Agency, the federal agency that does regulate pesticides, they have a number of good resources, including they have, now this is just for human repellents, the ones that we use to spray, treat ourselves with, but they have a searchable database there where you can put in how long you're going to be outside, what kind of products you might want to use. Do I prefer to use
wow.
citronella?
Yeah.
Is it for a child? Is it for an adult? And they will give you a list of the different kinds of products and what their claims are. And they also now have a new logo that's just been approved for use on human repellents that indicates how long it's effective and whether it's effective against ticks and mosquitoes, or just mosquitoes
Yeah.
or just ticks. So there again, I think that those are really good,
Yeah.
useful phone numbers and websites for
Very
people to
much.
find
And I'm
more
glad you
information.
mentioned ticks, because we forgot to mention ticks. Ticks are a big problem and carry some major diseases.
Oh, they do. Lyme disease.
Lyme disease, and all three of my horses were tested positive for Lyme, and I heard a vet say that it's unusual if a horse hasn't been infected with
That's
Lyme.
what I hear.
Yeah, because they're outside and they're so big. I mean, Kathy, really, to try and find a tick on a horse.
Oh, I know.
I mean, I've done it, but that is a challenge.
That is.
That is. I
Learning
mean, it's
to
hard enough
avoid
on a
those
dog.
areas where they're picking them up for perhaps.
Oh, mow. When you said
Mowing,
clean, mow everything down. Mow it down to the ground, because that'll, and the sun, the ticks don't like the sun. They like to be in the leaves, in dark areas.
They need
so
that
you get rid of a lot
moisture.
of that.
Yep,
Yeah.
so, right.
Okay. So, Kathy, I think, did we cover everything?
I think we did.
Okay. The only thing we didn't cover are all the things that we're going to try to cover on another show, like herbal remedies, supplements, equipment that you can get, different types of things that you can help your horses with. Clothing, we'll bring some sheets in and talk about those at some point soon, hopefully within the next month or so. And then please stay tuned. We're going to have one more exercise show, and this exercise show number 2, we're going to be using barn equipment. The first show we used nothing, no weights, nothing, something very simple that you can do exercises, a 20-minute aerobic workout. This one, my co-host Martha's going to be joining me again. We're going to use things like wheelbarrows and salt blocks to give us a little bit of resistance, and it should be a fun show. So hopefully you'll join us for that. Make sure that you watch our other show with Kathy Marie, Biting Insects and Stinging Insects. You'll get a lot of information there. And until next time, this is your host, Gabriela Rodriguez, saying, enjoy your horse, care for your horse, and keep your horse. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.